Međunarodnim iskustvom u ključnom gonjenju korupcije. Sa nama su dvije opcije, Tanja Krivac, Hamburg, Njemačka, došli, zatim Hector Poland, Agencija za istrage iz oblasti državne bezbjednosti, Tampi, Florida, Michael McNear, detektiv i financijski istražitelj, metropolitanske policije i Fabio Ređalo, javni tužilac i tužilaštvo Katanje. Na početku bih vam dao prozor za kratka izlaganja na tu temu. Hoće li se vam izvoliti?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. As I was introduced, my name is Gerd. I work at the Public Prosecutor's Office in Hamburg, and for several years now, I'm working in the Department of Anti-Money Laundering and Asset Recovery. Today, I will talk about the requirements for combating corruption. The effective fight against corruption and bribery is based on two fundamental pillars. It's first, discovery of the crime, offense, and second, effective law enforcement. Today, I will focus on the second pillar, effective law enforcement. Of course, as you all know, effective law enforcement needs law enforcement authorities, prosecution and judiciary, which are able to act without interference from the outside, especially interference from the other executive powers and legislative powers. And they must be able to act without conflict of interest. In that case, those authorities can take effective measures against corruption and bribery. Such effective measures consist of punishment, which means fines and sentences must hurt. They must hurt the defendant as a means of general and special prevention. And second, asset recovery. And I can't emphasize enough how important asset recovery is. Asset recovery means all criminal proceeds must be taken away from the beneficiary. It may be an entity, it may be a natural person. The main line is, crime shall not pay. In Germany, asset recovery did a good development, especially since the year 2000. We had some two very famous cases, as you might know. First, the Siemens. You might know about it. In the year 2009, my colleagues at the Munich Public Prosecutor's Office investigated in a case of bribery. Somebody in Greece, an official got corrupted by people acting on behalf of Siemens. He got a really big deal. I think it was in the area of medicine technology. My colleagues at the Munich office, they couldn't get enough evidence to put any member of the court of the Siemens company to court. As you know, it's a huge company with some 100,000 of people working there, big hierarchy, and it was hard, it wasn't possible to establish that somebody in person acted wrong, did do the bribery. But what they knew was there was bribery. And the Siemens company, they got a big benefit from that bribery. They got the deal. And by German law, and I'm sure it's the same US law, British law, Italian law, if somebody benefits from an offense or a crime, to take away the advantages. So what my colleagues did was they calculated the value of the deal. And they put a fine on top of it. And they made, in the end, Siemens pay about 600 million euro. So Prime didn't pay for Siemens. And as you see around here, you might find the focus of the conference is the fight on corruption. But as important is the fight on bribery. The one who bribes, there you get the big financial advantage. And to stop people trying to get those unlawful advantages, and then take away the benefits. Next case, a big case was Rheinmetall. Rheinmetall is a company selling, well, weapons. My colleagues in Bremen, they investigated a case against somebody was bribed in Greece, high civil servant official. They found out, again, they knew what deal was the Rheinmetall got by bribery, and they calculated the value of the deal, and they put a fine on top of it, and they made Rheinmetall pay 37 million euros. On top, or not on top, they even, there they could establish that members of the board of Rheinmetall were involved in the deal. They could establish personal guilt, and that in 2014, 4 members of the board of Rheinmetall were brought to Bremen District Court. The case is still pending. My third example is it's not a big case, and it's not exactly corruption, but I want to show what asset recovery can do in the field of corruption. I gave it the name Elbe View. What happened was, in Hamburg, at the beautiful river of Elbe, there was the owner of a company which was a real estate developer. This company and the owner didn't get the permission to cut down some really nice trees standing at the side of the Elbe, obstructing the view of some apartments he wanted to build and sell. And one day, all those trees were found cut down. But there's not much place to get to know who exactly did cut them down. And the Hamburg prosecutioner's office couldn't establish enough evidence that the beneficiary, the owner of the real estate developer, they ordered somebody to do it. To put him to court and to sentence him, we have to prove there wasn't enough evidence. No search, well, even search warrant, whatever we did, it wasn't enough. But what we knew was this company, they got a benefit. So we got an expert on the increase of value of the apartments which have been built in the aftermath, and we forced a mortgage into the land registry in the amount of the unlawful benefit. Well, it wasn't big fun for this company to sell those apartments, because what they got, we got. They had no benefit. And that's, again, it's used, what I want to point out, sort of money trail, fight corruption. I always have a good eye, who's the beneficiary. And if it's somebody in another country, big companies acting over the borders, just inform the law enforcement authorities in the other country. They can go after the bribery. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.
Hvala.
That's good afternoon, good morning. My name is Hector Colon. I'm an Assistant Special Agent in charge with Homeland Security Investigations, or HSI. If I say HSI, that's what Homeland Security Investigations is. And
Sorry, just turn on the mic.
I'm sorry. Now, so I'm an Assistant Special Agent in charge with Homeland Security Investigations in Tampa, Florida. I've been conducting investigations for over 21 years in law enforcement, U.S. federal law enforcement. And my previous job in Washington, D.C., I was also the head of our financial investigations for Homeland Security Investigations. One of the programs, so HSI is our purpose is to combat transnational crime. And we do that by trying to identify terrorist organizations or transnational criminal organizations or other criminal organizations that use our immigration and customs systems to exploit our laws. Basically, we can investigate any federal crime. So as federal agents, we have the same authorities that, for example, an FBI agent will have, DEA agent will have, but we focus on the border. We're a border enforcement agency, so that's where our focus is. And we work very closely with Customs and Border Protection. If you've ever traveled to the United States, those are the inspectors that are at the border. Among the laws that we investigate is money laundering and financial crime. And one of the associated authorities that we have is to investigate foreign corruption. Back in 2003, we created a group, a kleptocracy group, to focus on foreign corruption. At that time, in Miami, where this group was created, we were noticing that a lot of government officials from South America, which is drug-producing countries and a lot of transnational crime, were purchasing properties in the U.S., in Miami, were moving their money through financial institutions that had a nexus to the U.S. So we created this group, and this group basically started investigating what we call kleptocrats, politically exposed persons. Politically exposed persons in the U.S., by definition, is not only just those that are appointed to government positions that are politicians, but also their family members. So if you're married to a kleptocrat, you also are required to be monitored by financial institutions. So one of the key aspects that we do at HSI is in order to investigate, you need to be able to identify. And to identify financial transactions or the illicit movement of money, you basically need to work very closely with financial institutions. We have a robust outreach program where we go and provide training to financial institutions on indicators of what types of, in this case, what types of indicators would be for the movement of suspicious activity that they're required to report. Our regulatory framework in the U.S. requires financial institutions to have a robust anti-money laundering program. And they're required to report suspicious activity reports. And they're submitted to our FIU, which is FinCEN, the Financial Intelligence Network for the U.S. And the FIU shares that information with law enforcement. So we have direct access to suspicious activity reports. That, as a border agency, allows us to investigate financial crimes in particular. There's two aspects to our foreign corruption. We have the foreign corruption that involves like U.S. citizens that go to other countries and perhaps bribe other government officials or businesses to get their business. That's illegal in the U.S. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to do a bribe, whether it's to a government official or to a business entity to gain their business. So those are crimes that are investigated. Those are investigated primarily by the FBI. We've also done a few cases ourselves. The other is foreign government officials that use the U.S. financial system or move their assets to the U.S. In those cases, we work very closely those cases with the victimized country. So the victimized country would have to submit a request to the U.S. for assistance in those matters, where we would then assist them in identifying the assets, freezing the assets, seizing the assets, and then hopefully forfeiting the assets and returning those assets or whatever was stolen from the victimized country back to that country. We've had a couple of investigations, several investigations, where that occurred, specifically occurred. One of them was, for example, there was one in Colombia, Colombian military official who was laundering money into the U.S. We were able to seize his assets, recruit those assets, and bring them back to the U.S., and bring them back to Colombia. We had a case that involved the Taiwanese government, and in addition to, there was also one with links to the UK, where we also worked with the UK authorities to identify, the assets of a kleptocrat that had purchased, basically stolen money from an African country, and they bought assets in the UK and in the US, and we were able to seize their property and their illicit goods, and then forfeit it and return those funds to that country. When we work these investigations, we work very closely with other law enforcement agencies. One of the things that he mentioned was the authorities. You need to have the authorities to be able to investigate these crimes. Although we enforce over 400 crimes, sometimes we may need, for example, the IRS, who's our tax authority, who does our tax investigations. We may need some other law enforcement agencies. More importantly though, we work very closely with the prosecutors. The U.S. Department of Justice has a specific division that's asset forfeiture and recovery unit that are specialized prosecutors on these types of cases. And they know how to work the mutual legal assistance agreements, all the treaties for information sharing that are required in these types of cases. There has to be some kind of legal framework for us to be able to act upon a request and to share information. For the most part, we've been very successful. If there are not agreements in place with a particular country, a victimized country, we always find a way to do it through either a letter rogatory or through some other judicial proceeding to be able to work those investigations. But the bottom line is that Homeland Security investigations, we focus on preventing kleptocrats and politically exposed persons and other persons linked to politically exposed persons for using our financial systems and our country for movement, storing, moving, or laundering their illicit gains. And I look forward to answering any questions you may have later. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming here this morning. I'd like to say Dobry Doshli as well. I hope I said that correctly. Oh yeah, sorry, it's me as well. So Dobry Doshli, and thank you very much for coming here today. So a little bit about me first. I've been in the Metropolitan Police now for just over 11 years or so. I've been in the homicide crime unit there, in which we did use financial investigative tools to actually bring people to justice, to prove and disprove people's involvement. It's not, I will come on obviously to asset recovery and some other areas as well very, very shortly. But it's important that financial tools as a diary into someone's soul. We're all greedy, we all do things that we do, it's common nature, that we want to make money, we want to have the best for ourselves and our family. So moving swiftly on, so what are our objectives here today? So we're going to talk about the newly introduced 2018 unexplained wealth orders in the United Kingdom. We're going to talk about the confiscation order regime under asset recovery in the Proceeds of Crime Act 2002, and what that can do, not just for us, but also for you guys here in Montenegro as well. And the most important thing is that we all together, we have to fight it together, is corruption. The world over, has been mentioned earlier this morning, it's a global issue. It's not just a European or Montenegrin or United Kingdom or Germany issue. We have to fight it together. And this will hopefully assist Montenegro towards the path of European succession in due course. So we will obviously give some examples, some real life examples. There'll be a couple of those. There's more that I would love to share with you, but I can't really have the time here today. But criminal and terrorism finance, and I just want to bring that on to you. Lots of people think it's the same thing. Well, a lot of it is. We all hide the assets. They hide the assets. They have beneficial ownership, and rarely with criminal financing, money laundering. In other words, one of the things, and I forgot to do the slides. Bear with me. So they are the two of the most dangerous enemies of us, the public, the world's global public. So with money laundering, obviously someone has to have a gain from that, and it's generally on a transnational basis, definitely within Europe and the United Kingdom. Terrorism financing, slightly different with the end result. You know, criminal money laundering, okay, it's to benefit of you, and your colleagues. That's the whole point about it. Terrorism financing is the benefit of your cause, whether it be Daesh, ISIS, whatever you want to call them, Hezbollah, and other organisations. The point is that you make money for that organisation. And certainly within the United Kingdom, a lot of terrorism financing has also been introduced by self-funding. Student loans, for example, is another area where we look at. We also look at, okay, I want an overdraft on my bank account. So how do we do that? Okay, we get the overdraft and get that sorted out, but you don't use the overdraft for everyday purchases. You use that to finance your travel to Syria, or what was then Syria, where the guys were going, or whatever field of action that you want to participate in. So what I want to just impress on you firstly is just have that in the back of your minds and take that away from you. Take it away with you here today, the fact that it affects us all. Whatever crime is committed, it's not always down for the benefit of the person, but also funds terrorism. And as mentioned earlier, we're all in this together. We need to work together, and we need to be focused together, because it's a group effort, it's a team effort. It's not just an individual doing this. We all have to work together. So let's move on to unexplained wealth orders. So what are they? Well, you can see your picture there of some dirty money. Excuse the US dollars on there, but it's just the only one. So dirty money. So in London especially, there's a lot of dirty money. Okay, it's got a safe financial system. And when you have a safe financial system, you're always going to attract the wrong guys as well. In London, there's a lot of, in any case, the property is very high value. It's very expensive, and especially around, and I'll give one example around Hyde Park. There's a lot of properties, high value properties, which are inflated by dirty money. So what happens is a lot of corruption is brought in. And I don't want to be, excuse if there's anyone from these countries here today, Russia, China and Gulf states, for example, that bring money in, which is from corruption, maybe from stealing from their national budget for a particular, say the health ministry, for example, is one issue that's reared its head recently. So why do we have these unexplained wealth orders? They came in at the end of January this year, so it's a very new particular piece of legislation, and in the UK it has to go through Parliament, it has to be agreed. In the US it's like through Congress, etc. I'm not sure it's a parliamentary system here, so literally it takes a while for everything to be agreed and ratified. There was a report around about 2015 by Transparency International based in London, which wanted to have a tool to uncover illicit wealth in the United Kingdom as a whole. And if I remember the figure, it was around about over £4.1 billion worth of property, which in a way doesn't sound a lot for some of the properties in London alone. So an unexplained wealth order is a civil order. You can only go to the High Court. The law enforcement agency could be Crown Prosecution Service, who are lawyers who take the law enforcement cases to court. It could be the police. It could be even the Financial Conduct Authority, which has now come on board now to do that, which is quite interesting because they only deal with wrongdoing within the financial institutions. So it's very interesting times ahead to do that. So what does it require you to do? As mentioned earlier, with politically exposed people as well, this order has a little bit of a grey area, because in the United Kingdom, what they say is that the physically exposed person has to come outside of the European Economic Area. So that's anyone from within the European Union, including Britain, will not be covered by this particular point of law at the moment. It may change in the future. Let's hope so a little bit. So you also have to have a second ingredient to that, and that ingredient is that the person must be involved in some degree of serious organised crime, that the money or the property, the assets that come from that as well. So the order, it's a civil order as mentioned, we want to know how did they come by that property? Is it legitimate through family inheritance, or is it not? And quite often we will find in London that you'll have Mr. X will buy the property on behalf of Mr. Y, and then Mr. Z will be the person that's living in the property, and that Mr. Z does the reporting back to the original owner, and it's in the actual domain of Mr. Z that's in his name. So we want to know as much detail as possible, but we have a duty of care towards this respondent as well, because as mentioned by Hector earlier, it also covers members of their immediate family, wife, children, etc. But also, importantly, it also encompasses people like their secretaries, their people in the workforce, immediate workforce, even the lawyers that they deal with as well. So when they have to apply, and if they apply to their home country for documentation, and there's people's names within that documentation, which, if disclosed, could give them harm back in their home country, we have a duty of care towards that particular person as well as named. So the access to the information is restricted in that particular case. So who does the prosecutions? Well, in England at the moment, there's only been since January, 4 orders issued, all been successful. They were appealed by the relevant person, the Azaris, quite recently, and the High Court upheld the unexplained wealth orders, so they informed. What happened was, the woman was the wife of a wealthy banker. She was then going to Harrods, which is, as you know, is a very famous, expensive shop within London, and spending multi-million pounds within the shop, and obviously came to notice by the staff, which brings us all on. We're all in this together. Remember, that's not just law enforcement, it's other people within society as well. So, as I mentioned earlier as well, also, this all came to be because of the Criminal Finances Act of 2017. Also brought in about that was about the Magnitsky Act, which, as Hector will know, was introduced into the US through Congress, and it restricts the amount of people, or basically it names Russian people, and they can't enter or leave the US or have any interest within, I understand, with properties and entities within the US as well. So this particular guy, what happened was in about 2009, he was arrested in Moscow. He was allegedly accused of multi-million pounds worth of fraud, and he was then imprisoned without trial. He received no medical care for injuries concerned. So I keep forgetting to do this. And what happened was that he died after being allegedly beaten up in prison. So he knew a US businessman, and it was introduced into Congress through that particular way, and as I say, it restricts. It's now coming to English law as well, through the Criminal Finances Act, and basically we can seize assets from these particular people to do with Magnitsky Act, to do with human rights abuses. So it's a new piece of legislation which really hasn't sort of come to fruition. Now, criminals know no borders. No, that's our place where we all live, isn't it? And from west to east, north to south, we all have problems. I'll give you one more example. From Romania, Romanian gypsies, and I'll be blunt about that as well, are well known for going on to mainland continental Europe, stealing identities. A lot of them come to the UK with the identities. It's like a little conveyor belt of mules, different people doing different tasks. Eventually, accounts are opened up with overdrafts. They tease money out of people fraudulently with Airbnbs, which they never get, property they never get, through the internet as well, especially. The money goes into these accounts. They then take the money out as quickly as possible, including whatever overdraft they may be lucky to get, convert the money into euros, vacuum pack the money so that you can get more in, obviously, into the vehicles. And as you may or may not know, from Belarus all the way down to Romania and Bulgaria, and I presume here for people from Montenegro that live in the UK, you can legitimately take property like furniture over to your home country for about £1 in money per kilogram. But within the van, also, because the driver wants to make a bit more money sometimes, you have all of this vacuum pack money. It goes back over to Romania, and what happens is, yes, it does support the lifestyle of the people there, but also you have to remember in eastern Ukraine there's a civil war at the moment, well, not the civil war, but the war with Russia at the moment there. And what we have to know is that the weapons come to western Ukraine and drop down into Romania. Some of this money buys weapons. The weapons are then kept by these guys in Romania, and then other guys come over from the Middle East and buy these weapons at, again, an inflated price and take them back over to wherever they require that. So this is one of my points, is that it's not just a UK issue or Germany or US, it's all of us. We all have to fight this, because all of these paths that these people take are all going to come through Montenegro at some particular stage and other countries. So we're all in this together. So moving on to asset recovery and Proceeds of Crime Act 2002. One of the things that didn't happen a long time ago in the 1980s and even the 60s was confiscation of proceeds of crime. You have to concentrate on getting the benefit, as being mentioned earlier. So it was first recognised in the 1980s, and I'll give you one example. In the 1960s, there was a great train robbery. Lots of money from the Royal Mail train was stolen, the equivalent value of about £45 million worth today. There was no confiscation orders in those days, so they just got their convictions whenever they got caught. And literally, we found on then, look at the second point, there's an effective way to punish organised criminal activities. By just giving someone a prison sentence, does it actually punish them? It does a little bit, but inside their networking, aren't they, for when they come back out? And we find that confiscating the proceeds of their crime punishes the criminal and indeed their families more. But we have to remember about human rights, and that confiscating the assets has to be within the human rights field. For example, there was a guy who, amongst others, had stolen a lot of money from an elderly gentleman in London. He, at the time, was convicted. He received his prison sentence, which was about 7 years. He had a confiscation order, and for a confiscation order, you can only get that at a Crown Court on conviction, no other time. Obviously, and I'll come to some other points a little bit later about financial investigations, but with this particular guy, they'd already hidden his assets, so all of his houses and things like this were not in his name, and the bank accounts were all closed in someone else's name. So the then financial investigator, which was not me, decided that it had to be a nominal order, which the judge agreed, £1. Imagine that, how silly that sounds, £1, it's like €1. So what happened was that it then found to me, and this is what's important when you have your proceeds of crime equivalent here in Montenegro, is revisit the confiscation order a few years later, which is what I was tasked to do. I was asked, Mike, can you have a look at this order again? I then found that he had a lovely house in the United Kingdom, a lovely house abroad, he had mega money in his bank accounts as well, and other suitable assets, to enjoy a lovely lifestyle. So the figure I had to aim to recover was £70,000. So we managed to do that by just focusing on his bank account, because we also have a duty of care to his children and his family as well, though no doubt the wife knew what he was up to. So that was then recovered and given back to the elderly victim 10 years later, who was most grateful to receive some money back, which he never thought he was. So it's very important to revisit these events. Money laundering, just a little taster. Think, how would you do money laundering? How would you do it? I know how I would do it, but you never know what will happen down the line. But you've got to think, put yourselves in their shoes all the time. How will I do it? How will I get away with it? How can I prevent being arrested and convicted and given a confiscation order? here we have a typical money laundering scheme here, which basically, I'm sure most of you guys will know about the collection of dirty money, putting it into the financial system. There's various means that you can then, that's a placement, layering and integration. So you then have all of the various assets here. So what's important really, and I hope I won't be going too much over my time, is that we have on the financial investigation, leave no stone unturned. That was given to me many years ago. Question everything, question everyone. Don't be bothered about what people think of you when you do that. It's about what you do that counts. And by questioning everything and being thorough with everything and recording everything that you do, every decision that you make, time and date it as well. Retain it and reveal it if necessary to the courts. It's very record, retain, reveal. Very important. So it explains your thought process because things change over time. We have a look at obviously what their income is and what's going out. We also see what assets they have. But the most important thing again is here, international inquiries. In the United Kingdom we deal with the US quite a lot. We go to the US Embassy and again work with Homeland Security there on certain issues, and also other embassies within London, such as the Republic of Ireland's embassy as well. We all work together, but the FIUs need to work more together. It needs more funding and to bring successful resolution to all of our issues here. So, as we mentioned earlier, it's on conviction at a Crown Court, and the issue is, as you said earlier with that example, there's two amounts that are looked at. The available amount, what is right here and now, that can be taken from that particular person. We want to take the whole lot, like Bjorn mentioned earlier, about, should we say, seizing the whole benefit. Sometimes it's not possible. So we have two figures of what's available right here and now, and what the benefit figure is. So if they win the national lottery, for example, or they come into some lovely property, like we mentioned, revisiting a confiscation order, we can then apply through the lawyers to the court to seize those assets to that value. We can't go over that value of the benefit figure though. And what if they don't comply? Well, every single week I trudge down to the Westminster Magistrates Enforcement Court. There's a lot of funny old characters that turn up there with confiscation orders. Some play ball. It's all about talking to people. Because sometimes, just because you have someone that's convicted of a crime, doesn't mean you can't talk to them. No, they're still a human being at the end of the day, and sometimes you'd be surprised how, by talking to people, how much more you can get out of people in a nice way. It's also about being human to people, being firm but fair, and if not, you can always escalate up. And we also deal with the solicitors. One thing is, as I say, we're all in this together. Solicitors need to advise their clients more on the issues that I've noticed about what happens with a confiscation order. Because generally, when they finish with a conviction, what happens is that they're left high and dry. They're like, what do I do now? So we're in the position to actually visit them in prison and also speak to their solicitor. Sometimes there's a solicitor that's helpful. If they don't pay up, there's what we call a default sentence, so a second prison sentence. So you have your prison sentence for whatever crime you did. Then for the benefit, you then have a second prison sentence based on the ratio of how much is outstanding on the order. Of course, if you then decide to pay up, then you don't go in. It's your choice, basically. But there's our ways around that, and one of the things that we're thinking of doing as well, and certainly a couple of weeks ago at the Law Commission, they were trying to implement new ideas to make it a bit more streamlined as well. But it is the fact that you have the default sentence at the moment, but we want to introduce something like a public works scheme. So maybe beforehand as a deterrent to, so for example, you have £10 an hour, €10 an hour, then that goes towards the confiscation order. And then if you don't play ball later on, or it's an extreme amount, then you have your prison sentence. So that's the legislation that's behind me there, which we use. And of course you have the FATF, Fifth Money Laundering Directive there, which has a big impact, definitely on European Union and UK law, in fact global law, and it's something that we should all be trying to enforce. The problem that we have in the UK at the moment is the fact that this particular is advisory. It's not, you can't really enforce it, but the government's put it into law, so then it's enforceable. However, The problem is that this is an international objective, and what I would suggest to Montenegro, if you don't mind me saying, is the fact that don't cut the amount of financial investigators that you have. Increase the number. It has to be increased, because in our world, unfortunately, they're decreasing. And we'll give you one example. 2.5 years ago when I joined you, there were 11, now there's 5. So, you know, it's all about priorities. Priorities are international crime, organised crime. So, just lastly, coming up to a conclusion now, we have a duty to work together on this, and the duty is basically we have a legal obligation and also a personal human obligation, I believe, to bring corruption as down as possible. I don't believe we'll ever get rid of corruption at all. But what we have to focus on is to do the best that we can, bring as much down as we can, to ensure that in the future our children and grandchildren have a better and brighter future to live under. So I thank you very much, and there's some details on there should you wish to contact me later on, but also, as Hector has mentioned, I'm also open to some questions later as well, either on the forum or afterwards. Thank you very much.
Hvala gospodine Knježini, Zitaj, gospodin Fabio.
I need the translation. And, mi scuso innanzitutto per le difficoltà che creerò utilizzando la lingua italiana.
Na početku se želim da se izvini zbog teškoće koje će izazvati zato što će koristiti italijanski jezik.
Tenevo però a far parte di questa conferenza perché ritengo un momento fondamentale per approfondire un tema che ci accomuna tutti.
Znači, bilo mi jako stalo da budem učesnik u ovoj konferenciji jer je jako bitan moment za temu koja objedinjuje sve nas.
Io credo che in questo momento in Europa si stia giocando una partita fondamentale attraverso la creazione, la volontà di creare il cosiddetto procuratore europeo, le squadre investigative comuni e l'ordine di arresto europeo.
Znači, u Europi se trenutno igra jako bitna utakmica u smislu toga da se ima namjera oformiti europski tužilac, timovi za istragu, timovi za istragu i sve to što obuhvata.
Tutto questo però è assolutamente inutile se noi non riusciamo a capire la grandezza del fenomeno corruttivo.
Sve to bespotrebno ako mi sami ne shvatimo koliko je velika stvar korupcija.
Non sono condotte isolate, ma sono fenomeni criminali a tutti gli effetti. In Italia, ad esempio, numeri con statistiche riduttive indicano in 60 miliardi di euro il costo della corruzione e 120 miliardi di euro il costo dell'evasione fiscale.
Znači, to nisu pojedinačni slučajevi, to je jedan sistemski oblik kriminala koja sa sobom nosi velika finansijski moment u smislu novca.
60 milijardi di euro.
60 miliona eura je znači procijenjena vrijednost krivičnih dijela korupcije.
E 120 milijardi di euro.
120 milijardi eura prevare poreske.
Abbiamo a livello europeo, ma direi anche a livello mondiale, pubblici amministratori che indirizzano commesse e finanziamenti pubblici non nell'interesse della collettività, ma nell'interesse di soggetti di potere.
Znači, postoje i u Italiji znači, javni funkcioneri koji rade u javnom sektoru, koji pomažu da se pojedinac, da interes ne bude kolektivni, nego da bude interes samo pojedinaca.
Guardando i fenomeni mondiali, io mi occupo e coordino un gruppo di magistrati che fanno indagini in pubbliche amministrazioni. E guardando a livello mondiale posso dire che
Znači, ja pripadam timu za tužioce iz Europe koji se bave ovom tematikom, temom korupcije.
in numerosissimi paesi del mondo si creano dei blocchi sociali così composti. A un lato una classe politica, una parte della classe politica permeabile al malaffare. Dall'altro lato settori imprenditoriali che non vogliono misurarsi con il mercato e grazie a padrinaggi di ogni tipo. Dall'altro lato una borghesia professionale affaristica e spregiudicata.
Znači, bilo iz iskustva koje sam vidio osim u Italiji i u drugim zemljama, ovaj posao se nekako dijeli na više stvari. S jedne strane imate političke partije koje znači su u korupciji, s druge strane imate biznismene koji ne žele da ulažu svoj novac na tržište, već tamo gdje njima odgovara, i s druge strane borghesia tra l'altro
corrotta e
znači tu građansku strukturu koja je isto korumpirana.
È un fenomeno di rilevanza importante perché a mio avviso crea ingiustizia sociale sotto due punti di vista. Da un lato
Znači, to je jedan fenomen velikih razmjera koji veliku nepravdu uopšte nanosi u društvu. Sa jedne strane imamo
da un lato le imprese che non versano le imposte e che si avvantaggiano delle frodi fiscali inevitabilmente sono più concorrenziali sul mercato rispetto a quelle che rispettano
s jedne
la legge.
strane imate uvijek znači firme koje ne plaćaju redovno poreze, regularno, i na taj način pridonose sebi veliku finansijsku korist i samim tim su jako konkurentne na tržištu.
Dall'altro lato le imprese che si accaparrano contratti pubblici ovviamente attraverso la corruzione non hanno bisogno di giovani professionali laureati e con master, avendo solo bisogno di collettori di corruzione.
A znači, s druge strane imate firme koji putem korupcije dobijaju tendere i na taj način oni nemaju potrebu za zapošljavanjem kadra, profesionalaca, stručnjaka, znači oni imaju samo potrebu da im neko obezbijedi da preko korupcije dobiju tendere.
Tutto ciò crea peraltro una incredibile zavorra sullo sviluppo dei paesi, perché ovviamente tutte queste somme che vengono drenate alle tasse e allo Stato potrebbero servire per costruire nuove scuole, strutture sociali e per ampliare la capacità di crescita del paese.
Sve ove stvari generalno utiču jako na opšti zastoj u razvoju svake zemlje. Jer sad taj novac koji sam prije pomenuo na način koji se dobija, znači mogao bi da se iskoristi u izgradnju puteva, škola i za opšte dobro društva.
Il problema fondamentale, in Italia abbiamo strumenti validissimi per combattere i fenomeni corruttivi, sia a livello normativo che a livello investigativo.
U Italiji imamo jako moćne instrumente za borbu protiv korupcije što se tiče normativnog okvira, a i što se tiče istrage.
Ad esempio, le nostre indagini tipicamente utilizzano strumenti di intercettazione telefonica e ambientale.
Znači, naše, prije svega, kad se govori o istragama, one prvenstveno podrazumijevaju telefonsko praćenje i prostorno.
Nel nostro paese è stata introdotta dal 2001 una legge che prevede la responsabilità non solo della singola persona fisica autrice del reato, ma anche della persona giuridica nell'interesse della quale si commette il reato.
Znači, od 2001. u Italiji je stupio na snagu zakon koji stavlja znači, odgovornost ne samo lica koje direktno izvrši krivično djelo, već i odgovornost prema osobi, prema pravnom licu prema kojem je izvršeno krivično djelo.
Sono previsti anche ovviamente strumenti di sequestro e confisca del profitto del reato e quindi sono numerosissime le indagini sul flusso finanziario.
Prvenstveno naglašavam da su jako velike istrage što se tiče toka novca. Jedan od glavnih instrumenta je svakako oduzimanje ili zapljena imovine.
Il problema fondamentale è come acquisire la notizia di reato, perché A differenza di tutti gli altri reati, le notizie di reato relative alla pubblica amministrazione vanno cercate e deve essere il pubblico ministero a individuarle per una serie di motivi che spiegherò.
Znači, prvenstveno trebamo da razmislimo o tome kako da prihvatimo obavještenje da se radi o mogućem krivičnom dijelu korupcije, jer taj tužilaštvo je uvijek to koje procjenjuje na osnovu informacije obavještenja kako da djeluje, a objasnit ću zbog čega.
Innanzitutto abbiamo una cosiddetta cifra nera dei reati di corruzione, intesa come differenza fra il numero dei reati commessi e quelli risultanti dalle statistiche giudiziarie.
Imamo prvenstveno crnu cifru koja objašnjava krivična djela korupcije, a ona se shvata kao ona je razlika, ona je u stvari rezultat statističkih podataka od suda i zloupotreba u odnosu na korupciju.
In secondo luogo, mentre tutti coloro che subiscono furti o rapine hanno tutto l'interesse a correre a fare la denuncia, coloro che invece hanno a che fare con reati contro la pubblica amministrazione non denunciano mai.
Znači, imate mnogo slučajeva žrtava koje su pretrpjeli krađu i razne stvari tog tipa koje su imali iskustvo negativno zbog korupcije u javnom sektoru, da se nikad, znači imate veliki procenat da se uopšte ne podnesu tužbe.
Anche con la polizia giudiziaria spessissimo sono molto preparati a fare indagini di un certo tipo, ma quando hanno a che fare con i reati con la pubblica amministrazione, che sono reati molto tecnici in Italia nella costruzione, trovano difficoltà.
Znači, pogotovo kad naša sudska policija je jako vješta u vršenju istrage, ali kad se radi o korupciji u javnom sektoru, nailaze na teškoće jer je jako teško sprovesti istragu do kraja.
E quindi ciò determina che il pubblico ministero, attraverso indagini per altri reati come frode fiscale, market abuse o bancarotta per distrazione, cerca di individuare notizie di reato relative alla pubblica amministrazione.
Iz tog razloga, vrlo često tužilaštvo u Italiji preko drugih krivičnih djela kao što je izazvani stečaj, kao što je neplaćanje poreza, preko tih krivičnih djela uspijeva onda istragom da dođe do korupcije u javnom sektoru.
Ad esempio è importantissima la collaborazione che molti uffici di procura in Italia hanno con l'ANAC, l'Autorità Nazionale Anticorruzione.
Jako bitna saradnja, moram da naglasim, koje sva tužilaštva u Italiji ostvaruju je sa Državnom agencijom antikorupcije, protiv korupcije.
Che la legge istitutiva dell'ANAC, dell'Autorità Nazionale Anticorruzione, prevede che l'ANAC abbia poteri di vigilanza sui contratti pubblici e quindi quando fanno vigilanza sui contratti pubblici e acquisiscono una notizia di reato la trasmettono immediatamente alla Procura della Repubblica competente.
Zakonski je uređeno precizno da ta agencija protiv korupcije, antikorupcije, znači ima potpunu slobodu u kontrolisanju tendera i znači i svih procedura oko javnih poziva. I na taj način, čim vidi nešto sumnjivo, znači obavještava tužilaštvo.
Altro strumento che utilizziamo per scovare le notizie di reato è il protocollo con Banca d'Italia e con gli ispettori della Banca d'Italia.
Drugi instrument koji često koristimo je jedan protokol koji imamo sa italijanskom bankom. Na taj način sarađujemo.
Finalizzata a individuare i flussi finanziari.
Na taj način dobijamo informaciju naravno od banke iz Italije, tako o kontrolisanju tokova novca.
In Italia il reato di corruzione è costruito in questo modo. Da un lato vi è un pubblico amministratore, un pubblico ufficiale, un incaricato di pubblico servizio che deve commettere un atto contrario alla legge, dall'altro lato deve esserci un privato che ripaga attraverso l'erogazione di un'utilità.
Znači, u Italiji se, znači, krivično djelo korupcije uvijek se sastoji od dva načina, bukvalno dvije strane. S jedne strane imate javnog funkcionera, bilo koliko radi u javnom sektoru koji je prekršio zakon, pomažući na taj način jednom privatniku da stvori sopstvenu korist.
E quindi dal lato pubblico, dal lato pubblicistico, diciamo, noi studiamo molto la legge sui contratti pubblici e sui pubblici appalti. Tutti gli uffici di procura che vogliono fare un'indagine seria sui reati contro la pubblica amministrazione approfondiscono e conoscono la legge sugli appalti pubblici.
Iz tog razloga svi oni koji se u Italiji bave u tužilaštvu korupcijom, krivičnim djelima korupcije, jako dobro poznaju zakon o tenderima i javnim pozivima. I znači to je prvo ono na što treba da se obrati pažnja.
Questo perché nel momento in cui, studiando un procedimento amministrativo, un contratto pubblico, individuiamo dei momenti, degli errori, noi li consideriamo delle cosiddette red flag, che devono farci alzare la soglia di attenzione e capire se c'è stato un errore o se dietro si nasconde un reato.
Jer upravo tako, poznajući dobro proceduru i zakonske okvire, mi možemo da prepoznamo odmah gdje nam se skreće pažnja kod nekog postupka tendera, da li trebamo da obratimo pažnju, da li u pitanju možda greška ili u pitanju koruptivno djelo.
Dall'altro lato, nel momento in cui individuiamo un errore, un momento di criticità nel procedimento amministrativo, ci chiediamo, ma perché quel pubblico ufficiale ha commesso quell'errore? Perché è impreparato o perché l'ha fatto volontariamente in quanto corrotto?
A s druge strane, kad je u pitanju greška, na izgled greška, ipak ne zaustavljamo se ni tu, nego i dalje istražujemo da vidimo zbog čega je javni funkcioner, zbog čega je službenik načinio grešku, da li je zato što je nesposoban, nije dovoljno stručan, ili se krije možda s druge strane da je to namjerno uradio, da bi na taj način pomagao opet nekom privatniku da ostvari korist.
A quel punto andiamo a verificare se è possibile individuare qual è stata l'utilità in termini di denaro o altri vantaggi che il privato ha erogato in maniera indebita al pubblico impiegato.
S druge strane isto istražujemo koja je to korist, znači kako je korišćen novac koju je privatnik platio za određene usluge.
Ad esempio, per individuare l'utilità utilizziamo tantissimo le indagini che riguardano il settore delle frodi fiscali, perché nel momento in cui vediamo che esiste un'impresa che emette fatture per operazioni inesistenti, andiamo a capire perché si sta facendo quella fattura per operazioni inesistenti.
Jer pogotovo za to navodno pružanje usluga, kad vršimo te istrage vezano za utaju poreza, obavezno obratimo pažnju na fakture koje određeno lice izdaje za nepostojeće usluge. Iz kojeg razloga je to uradilo i kome je.
Perché spessissimo le fatture per operazioni inesistenti vengono utilizzate proprio per creare i fondi neri che consentono agli imprenditori poi di pagare le cosiddette mazzette utilità.
Jer upravo tako sve počinje, znači prvo se izdaje faktura za nepostojeću uslugu, na taj način se počinje da se izdvaja novac sa strane koji opet se koristi za koruptivne djela u smislu privatnih plaća, otplaćuje službenike.
Altro strumento che utilizziamo è la legge che è stata introdotta e che riguarda le operazioni di segnalazioni sospette.
Znači, drugi instrument koji koristimo je skorašnji zakon koji je stupio na snagu, na osnovu kojeg mi odmah djelujemo na bilo kakvu signalizaciju sumnjivih radnji.
Nel nostro paese è previsto infatti che tutta una serie di soggetti, banche, commercialisti, avvocati, notai, negozianti, quando vedono un'ingente operazione in denaro contante o l'utilizzo di fondi di transito, devono fare la segnalazione all'ufficio competente.
Po tom zakonu, znači, subjekti kao što su advokati, notari, pregovarači, svi oni koji su uključeni znači, u biznis, moraju da signaliziraju automatski tužilaštvu ko vide bilo koju transakciju za gotovinska plaćanja, bilo kakvu sumnjivu transakciju, imaju obavezu da signaliziraju to tužilaštvu.
Ovviamente non tutti le fanno, ma la legge prevede delle forti sanzioni per chi non ottempera a questo obbligo di segnalazione.
Naravno da svi ne poštuju ovaj zakonsku odredbu, ali isti zakon predviđa značajne kazne za onoga koji to ne poštuje.
Tutto ciò ci consente di provare a individuare i flussi finanziari illeciti, cioè il modo attraverso il quale il pubblico ufficiale corrotto incamera l'utilità per il proprio atto corruttivo.
Sve ovo što sam naveo nam pomaže da bolje pratimo nelegalne tokove novca, odnosno kako se koristi novac koji je primio službenik iz javnog sektora za korupciju.
La legge sugli appalti pubblici e sui contratti pubblici in Italia è una legge molto dettagliata che viene modificata spesso per aggiornarla ed è una legge che prevede diverse fasi del momento pubblicistico.
Znači, zakon o tenderima u Italiji je jako opširan, jako detaljno je urađeno sva ta procedura tenderska, kako se dobijaju tenderi, kako se dobijaju poslovi, sve je to jako dobro urađeno.
Prevede la fase iniziale di selezione del contraente.
Znači, prva faza predviđa se izbor ponuđača.
La fase di aggiudicazione dell'appalto pubblico.
Faza kome dodijeliti tender.
La fase dell'esecuzione del contratto.
Fazu izvršenja ugovora.
E la fase di ultimazione dell'opera e quindi di collaudo e pagamento.
I posljednja faza je dovođenje pri kraju projekta i tehničko ispitivanje.
Per ognuna di queste fasi è prevista una normativa di settore integrata anche dalle circolari dell'ANAC.
Znači, za sve ove faze je predviđeno posebni zakonska akta i posebna regulatorna akta koja daju slobodu u stvari da bude i uključena agencija za antikorupciju.
È una materia molto tecnica e complicata, ma che un pubblico ministero che voglia fare indagini con la pubblica amministrazione deve conoscere pena gravi errori.
Ovo je jako kompleksna i tehnička nekako oblast, jako je kompleksna i svaki tužilac koji se bavi ovim mora dobro da je poznaje.
L'importante è che, visto che la criminalità è organizzata, che anche gli investigatori si organizzino e non si facciano indagini per compartimenti stagni.
Znači, budući da govorimo o organizovanom kriminalu, sama riječ govori da je kriminal organizovan, s druge strane, suprotna strana, odnosno tužioci moraju isto tako da budu organizovani, u smislu da djeluju zajednički, ne zasebno.
Ad esempio, fare un'indagine separata per frodi fiscali o per fatture o per operazioni inesistenti senza provare a collegarle con un eventuale appalto pubblico o con un'eventuale red flag corruttiva, a mio avviso è miope ed errato.
Znači, po mom mišljenju je jako pogrešno pratiti, znači baviti se istragom pranja novca, znači ili istragom prevare poreske, a ne pokušati sve to povezati sa nekim znači tenderom mogućim koji je bio ili koji će biti i na taj način povezati sa korupcijom u javnom sektoru, znači po mom mišljenju jako bitno povezivanje stvari.
Nel nostro paese sia il pubblico ufficiale corrotto che il privato corruttore rispondono del reato e quindi sono entrambi indagati e non possono essere utilizzati come testimoni. Questo è un'ulteriore difficoltà tecnica.
Još jedna tehnička teškoća koja je u Italiji prisutna je što je, znači, bilo da se radi o funkcioneru koji je pod istragom, kao i privatniku koji je pod istragom, ni jedna ni druga strana ne mogu u istrazi da se koriste kao svjedoci.
E quindi ribadisco, questo tipo di indagini prevedono un pubblico ministero molto tecnicamente attrezzato e presente che vada a cercarsi la notizia di reato da sviluppare. Non esistono notizie di reato regalate in ufficio.
Pošto obavještenja o počinjenom krivičnom dijelu ne postoje poklenjena, u smislu da vam ih neko pokloni. Tužilaštvo je samo stvara u stvari tu atmosferu, samo dolazi do informacija gdje je moguće krivično djelo izvršeno i jako mora da bude tehnički opremljeno.
Lo strumento del decreto legislativo 231 del 2001 introduce uno strumento importantissimo, che è quello che ci consente di fare il processo direttamente alla società, alla persona giuridica e non solo alla persona fisica.
Znači, po jednom zakonodavnoj uredbi iz 2001. Znači, nama je omogućeno da direktno vršimo, procesuiramo pravno lice, ne moramo samo fizičko lice.
È stata una legge fortemente voluta e che ha previsto un dibattito dottrinale perché in teoria in Italia, secondo l'articolo 27 della Costituzione, solo le persone fisiche possono commettere reati.
Znači, to je jedna uredba, to je zakonodavna uredba koja je jako, da kažem, razvijena, jer po članu 27 njihovog ustava samo ovo krivično djelo može da bude stavljeno na teret fizičkoj osobi.
E attraverso questa legge ora è previsto che quando una persona fisica commette un reato di corruzione e lo fa nell'interesse di una società, si possa chiedere il sequestro di quella società o addirittura il divieto per quella società di contrarre con la pubblica amministrazione per i successivi 5 anni.
Znači, po tom zakonu, taj nam zakon daje mogućnost da kad je u pitanju fizičko lice za koje smo utvrdili da je izvršilo krivično djelo korupcije, ali u interesu privatno firme, znači imamo pravo da zaplijenimo imovinu te firme ili eventualno da joj zabranimo za narednih 5 godina da nema prava da vrši, da učestvuje na tendere tako tog tipa.
È infine previsto anche la possibilità, come dicevo prima, di sottoporre a sequestro e quindi a confisca in caso di condanna il profitto del reato, tutte le somme che costituiscono profitto del reato.
Tim zakonom je također predviđeno, kao što sam prije pomenuo, zapljena ili oduzimanje imovine. Sva imovina stečena na račun krivičnog djela korupcije mora da bude zapljena i oduzeta.
È stato introdotto nel nostro paese anche la possibilità di effettuare il cosiddetto sequestro per equivalente, ovvero la possibilità di sequestrare non necessariamente quelle somme utilizzate per commettere il reato, ma anche l'equivalente a quell'importo. Quindi noi, quando non troviamo le somme e abbiamo ad esempio 100.000 euro di profitto del reato, se non troviamo quelle somme andiamo a sequestrare un immobile, beni mobili fino al valore di 100.000.
Znači, to je dobro jako urađeno, detaljisano zakonom na način da ako je 100.000 sumnjivo ostvareno krivičnim djelom korupcije, znači ako ne nađemo, dođemo do novca od 100.000, mi imamo zakonsko pravo, zakonom dozvoljava, daje nam mogućnost da imovinu ili bilo nešto drugo u vrijednosti u istoj vrijednosti oduzmemo.
Non voglio rubare ulteriore tempo e sono ovviamente a disposizione per qualsiasi domanda e mi scuso ancora se ho creato difficoltà per la lingua.
Ne želim da vam dodatno vrijeme uzimam, naravno da sam na raspolaganju za bilo koje pitanje i opet se izvinjavam što sam vam znači, otežao današnji moj govor sa korišćenjem italijanskog.
Quello che volevo provare a sottolineare e a far capire è che al di là delle questioni tecniche, giuridiche, quando parliamo di corruzione parliamo di un fenomeno che ruba il futuro alle nuove generazioni.
Pored svih tih tehničkih problema, teškoća, kada govorimo o fenomenu korupcije, želio bih da naglasim da je to jedan fenomen koji nam krade budućnost buduće generacija.
Per due motivi in particolare.
Iz dva razloga.
Innanzitutto perché in un paese dove non c'è un adeguato contrasto alla corruzione, ovviamente tutti gli imprenditori seri, le imprese serie, quelle che rispettano le regole, pagano le tasse, subiscono una konkurenca sleale i quindi tendono a scappare da quel paese.
Sjednog, znači prvi razlog je zemlja u kojoj je naglašena korupcija. Znači, postoje firme koje poštuju zakone, koji nemaju veze s korupcijom i s druge strane postoje firme koje su ogrezle u korupciji sa javnim sektorom i na taj način su nelojalna konkurencija firmama koje poštuju zakon. Na taj način firme koje poštuju zakon pretrpe veliku štetu i sigurno će jednom doglednoj budućnosti imati namjeru da ostave sve.
Dall'altro lato, tutti i giovani che studiano, che si laureano e che dietro non hanno alle spalle famiglie potenti o imprese potenti e che quindi studiano per cercare un lavoro sono costretti a abbandonare il paese perché ovviamente in un paese corrotto non c'è bisogno di professionalità.
A s druge strane je znači kadar. Mladi ljudi koji se osposobljavaju, koji uče i trude se da postanu profesionalci u jednoj korumpiranoj zemlji, svakako nemaju budućnosti. Svakako će pokušati na sve načine da odu, jer korumpirana zemlja nema potrebu za profesionalcima.
E quindi da uomo dello Stato sono orgoglioso di rappresentare il mio paese e provare a far capire quanto si sta facendo in Italia per combattere la corruzione.
Pošto sam čovjek koji predstavlja državu, jako mi je drago što sam imao priliku da prisustvujem ovom skupu i da vam dajem do znanja na neki način da vam kažem koliko Italija poklanja, italijanska država poklanja pažnju za suzbijanje korupcije. Hvala.
Hvala vam. Da li u ovom trenutku ima nekih pitanja, komentara za naše mjesto? Bilo ko?
Yes. Hello, my name is Stelios Sofanidis. I'm from Cyprus. I have a short question which shows some of the deficits in the overall efforts worldwide to tackle corruption, and a particular case comes to my mind which exposes the loopholes that exist in this effort. And it is a case of a German citizen called Mr. Florian Holm, who was involved in a scandal in the US about 10-12 years ago, who had allegedly defrauded investors, managed to hide away the ill-gotten gains via some very sophisticated money laundering schemes. He was arrested sometime in 2013, if I remember correctly, in Italy. He was released the following year for some reason that doesn't come to my head now. I cannot tell you right now why. But now he lives in Germany, in his home country, and he gives interviews to the press. He's living as if nothing had happened. Nobody knows where this money has landed, and he pretends that he's now a devoted Christian and so on, and most of the people buy that. So what went wrong in that case? If the gentleman from Germany could explain us, and perhaps also the gentleman from Italy, and also the gentleman from the US. What happens in such cases where people wanted in the US who are caught and not extradited find refuge in their home countries? Thank you very much.
Well, if I may start, I don't know the case, but I'm positive your prosecution action would have been taken if he would have acted under German law. As you pointed out, he committed the fraud in the US, am I right?
Yeah.
So the victims are not Germans, are not situated in Germany, right?
I have no idea about that, but
So,
should people assume that, yes.
well, if I assume I have no ground as a prosecutor, just because he is of German nationality, I can't prosecute that guy when he is committing a crime somewhere else. If it's not like murder or, you name it, crimes against mankind, but it's just fraud. So I suppose he didn't act under German jurisdiction. So now he's in Germany. I don't know too much about extradition to the US. I don't know if the US government wanted him to be extradited. So I can't tell about that. He may live around.
I can tell you if that crime was committed in the US, it's probably a federal crime. It was investigated by some law enforcement agency. I don't have the specifics of this case. I'm not fully aware of it. Or I don't even know if it was my agency that investigated it. Now, we have had instances of investor type frauds and where people go through these complex schemes, offshore accounts, or move money, just basically defrauding people in the US. In those instances, those cases are investigated, and fraud is a predicate offense for money laundering. So we would go after the individual. We would also go try to identify all the assets. And in these instances, we try to recover the funds to make the victims whole. We return those funds to the victims. We consider the people that were defrauded victims. And so that money doesn't go like to the state. It basically goes into, once we seize it and we forfeit it, we're able to repatriate it to the victims, the same way we would do if it was a country that was victimized by corruption, for example, what I mentioned earlier. But in this instance, I don't know the particulars. I don't know how we work with the other governments. We do that on occasion. Depends on what kind of treaties we have in place, whether it's an extraditable offense. I don't even know if the individual was charged. But if he was charged, we do try to get them, work with our foreign counterparts to get the individual extradited to face the charges in the US.
Hvala. Vanessa.
Ja bih imala dosta pitanja za naše goste, nešto sam ih pitala za večerom, pa ću se svesti samo na jedno. S obzirom na to da jedino u Sjedinjenim Američkim Državama imamo sporazum o priznanju krivice, koliko znam ni u jednom od vaše 3 države nemamo taj sporazum, zato bi pitanje bilo dominantno upućeno vama. Dakle, kada bi bio hipotetički sklopljen sporazum o priznanju krivice sa šefom jedne kriminalne grupe, organizovane kriminalne grupe, šta bi se desilo sa imovinom? Da li bi taj sporazum bio sklopljen prije nego što se utvrdi njegova imovina? Da li bi se imovina utvrđivala tek i pokušala oduzimati tek nakon sklopljenog sporazuma? Ili bi to bio sporazum? Prosto, kakva je praksa kada je u pitanju sklapanje sporazuma o priznanju krivice u dijelu finansijske istrage?
So that's a prosecutorial question. The plea bargainer's office is a strategy used by prosecutors in the United States to dispose of an investigation, to make a final disposition. I want to note that although there may be a plea bargain, the judges that eventually sentence the individuals are not bound by those plea bargains. They 99% of the time they comply with the plea bargain, but in some instances I've seen judges not agree with what was agreed, if you know what I mean. And that's part of the plea bargain, that the judge makes an independent decision on the plea bargain. When prosecutors go into plea bargains, they normally consult with the investigators. We usually work out some kind of deal, that's what a plea bargain is, it's a deal, where they do have to cooperate with the government, provide all information. For example, if there's assets that need to be recovered, provide information on the assets, or basically not abandon, forfeit the assets to the United States.
Prior to the deal or after?
it's usually, you mean when we get the assets? It's usually part of the deal. So the deal is signed, but it's not delivered, or it's not, final judgment on the investigation is not done until after. So when someone pleads guilty, that's when the plea bargain occurs in the guilty phase, in the guilty or innocence phase. But there's then a sentencing phase, and the sentencing phase could be months later. So during that period of time, that individual has to cooperate and provide information or provide recourse or the assets that were negotiated as part of the plea bargain. And if they don't do that, then they did not comply with the plea bargain. And that is informed to the judge at sentencing, and the judge then can impose whatever sentence they deem appropriate.
So, sorry to interrupt, just to ask, so it wouldn't be possible, for example, for that person to start selling the property before actually?
No, absolutely not. That would be improper. And if we found out about that, we could just say the plea bargain was a violation of the plea bargain. And it's happened, I don't know if you heard in the news, but it just recently happened in a high-profile case involving the special counsel in the United States, where someone that was cooperating, the prosecutor said they're no longer cooperating, so the plea bargain's off the table.
If I may have a word, in that case, when we go after the proceedings, we, as a prosecutor, take care to get a order of the court to be able to keep the proceeds, the values which I could save. So we make deals as well. So when we are talking, it's safe. It's safe by a court order. The police is looking for all the assets. They take the assets, we freeze their accounts, we take the gold away, we take the Van Gogh, the Rolex away, we keep it, we put a court order on it, so they can't sell it. And even if you don't find anything, the one who might take it, buy it, or just hide it, somebody else, they can go after them, and they will go after them because of money laundering. So when we are in the course of prosecution, it's very hard to get away with your own assets.
And I might add that in corruption, I'm sorry.
Per quanto riguarda l'Italia, in un caso del genere è previsto nel nostro paese l'istituto del patteggiamento.
To je jedna institucija za pregovore.
Che prevede un accordo di pena tra il pubblico ministero, il difensore, che poi deve essere validato comunque sempre dal giudice.
Znači taj dogovor u stvari slično je kao nešto sporazum koji se radi između dvije strane, dogovara se između tužioca i osuđenog. Na taj način oni dogovore, usklade i sve to što su dogovorili na kraju mora da sudija ovjeri, da presudi.
In questi casi è ovviamente previsto come condizione indispensabile per il patteggiamento che il profitto del reato venga confiscato.
A preduslov da bi se stupilo u pregovore o priznavanju krivice je da imovina bude zaplijenjena.
Come vi dicevo prima, spessissimo noi facciamo un processo parallelo anche alla società e anche in quel caso è previsto che la stessa società possa chiudere il processo con un patteggiamento che è una condanna a tutti gli effetti che però prevede una riduzione di pena e anche in quel caso c'è la confisca del profitto del reato.
Znači kada je u pitanju proces protiv određenog pravnog lica, znači ako sklopi taj sporazum omogućava jeste smanjenje kazne, ali s druge strane on mora da vrati imovinu, da znači njegova imovina je zaplijenjena.
È chiaro che con il patteggiamento vi è uno sconto di pena che arriva fino a un terzo, uno sconto di un terzo.
Znači imamo smanjenje kazne, govorimo o trećini, za trećinu najviše.
Ma lo Stato ha tutto l'interesse a prevedere istituti di questo tipo perché ovviamente si arriva a condanna immediatamente senza lunghi processi.
I na taj način se dolazimo prije do presude, konačne, pravosnažne i izbjegavamo dugotrajne procese.
Per quanto riguarda invece la gestione dei beni sottoposti a sequestro prima e poi a confisca in caso di condanna, nel nostro paese esiste una legislazione ad hoc precisa che disciplina le modalità di gestione dei beni confiscati.
A što se tiče upravljanja tim zapljenjenom ili oduzetom imovinom, kod nas postoji zakonski okvir, u stvari uređen zakon koji uređuje kako i na koji način se može raspolagati tom imovinom kasnije.
La finalità fondamentale della gestione dei beni è un riutilizzo a fini sociali dei beni tolti all'imputato.
Znači, ali glavna namjera u Italiji postoji vezano za oduzetu ili zapljenjenu imovinu od osuđenog lica je da se koristi ta imovina u društvene svrhe za opšte dobro.
Spessissimo però la gestione è difficoltosa o non crea profitto e a quel punto è prevista la possibilità di vendita dei beni e così lo Stato incamera le somme della vendita.
A u slučaju kada je dalje upravljanje imovinom nekako otežano ili ne predviđa se, ne donosi korist konkretnu finansijsku, u tom slučajima zakon dopušta da se ista imovina može prodati. Na taj način opet država dobija novac od zapljenjene imovine.
La finalità è anche quella di salvaguardare ovviamente i livelli occupazionali delle aziende sottoposte a sequestro.
A svakako vodimo računa kad je u pitanju imovina da se u pitanju, pogotovo kad je u pitanju pravno lice, da se zadrže radna mjesta ljudi koji već rade.
Ja bih postavio jedno pitanje.
Sam htio da dodam nešto. I think you wanted to add something.
Yeah, I just want to add one thing that what you mentioned is really a red flag. You know, we're in corruption cases. A lot of times the property may not be in the individual's name. They'll have a family member or an associate attorney or some other legal entity, and the property's in their name, which makes it extremely difficult for law enforcement or prosecutors to identify. So in these negotiations, that's often done, and attempting for them to identify assets not known that may be linked. The Egmont Group, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Egmont Group, but the Egmont Group is a set of, it's basically a group of financial investigative units from around the world. They put together a document that's a very good document that has a set, it's called the Set of Indicators for Corruption-Related Cases. These are kind of like the red flags that financial institutions, this is for sharing with financial institutions. Financial institutions are at the front line. So any transaction, you know, purchase of a house, purchase of a car, movement of money, deposit of money, withdrawal of money, usually involves some type of financial institution or the designated non-financial institution, which also must comply with regulatory framework. But these red flag indicators, and some of them are the fact that legal entities are not in the names of the corrupt officials, is very valuable. And if the financial institutions are not aware of these red flag indicators, they need to be. Because they're the front lines. They're the ones that should be detecting the suspicious activity and reporting it to the proper authorities, so that the proper authorities can then investigate. And if I leave you with anything, it's with that part of whatever framework or whatever training you develop, there has to be training to the financial institutions, and the financial intelligence unit need to work closely with law enforcement and prosecutors to investigate the suspicious activity that's being reported to them.
Well, to add on, when Montenegro will enter the European Union, you will have to constitute something like this. It's a European Directive 2015-849, Article 32 to 38. Such reporting obligations constituted, and those red flags laid down for the financial institutions, especially banks acting on the country of Montenegro then. And it is also laid down that Montenegro will have to constitute a financial intelligence unit as well. Every member state of the European Union has to build up a financial intelligence unit.
Just moving on a little bit with that from the UK's perspective, there is called the joint. There's a joint intelligence unit between the financial institutions and the National Crime Agency. So any information the banks have about someone they suspect is passed to the NCA, and I'm not just talking about SARS, but any suspicious, if there's a politically exposed person, for example, that's bringing in money, way above their pay grade, for example. And though that works, what we're trying to develop in the UK, and I was certainly speaking to someone just recently, is developing a further system, because law enforcement can only touch the tip of the iceberg, is an intelligence system where, for example, you have one bank has information about a particular guy, and the other bank doesn't know. So, and you know that that other bank with intelligence knows that this guy is trying to get an account with that one. So people can talk, and these banks can talk to one another. It's sanitised, obviously, because it's intelligence, and there's certain restrictions that have to be in place. If someone's not convicted, obviously, is one. So basically, the banks will try and talk to one another now, and certainly it's moving on rather rapidly. Again, education is the key. Education is the key. Because, like Hector was saying, they are the front line, they are the ones that see anything first, and everyone has a duty to report that. Even if it doesn't turn out to be, the fact, the best thing is report it. If it is that case, then great. If not, okay, so forth. That's the move on.
And those reports are confidential. Jedno pitanje za sve vas. Da čujem koliko vašim zemljama prilikom korištenja ovog instituta vodite računa o zadovoljenju pravde, posebno u visoko profilisanim slučajevima, recimo korupcije na najviše nivova, ovdje je primjer o kome svi govorimo. Da li bi tužilaštvo oklivalo da u postupku protiv najviših državnih dužnosnika potrebi ovaj institut, ili bi se prije opredijelilo da to uradi u nekom kontradiktornom postupku pred sudom, gdje javnost očekuje da sazna detalje i da se dođe do adekvatne sankcije? Koliko se o tome vodi računa, koliko tužilaštvo vodi računa o osjećaju zadovoljenja prava? I za gospodine, za vas posebno pitanje. Koliko je ovaj institut, Amerika jeste koritan ovoga instituta gdje široko se primjenjuje, koliko je kompatibilan sa sistemima u kojima, kao kod nas, u Crnoj Gori, postoji vrlo blage kazne, smrtnu kaznu, doživotnu kaznu, doživotna bez mogućnosti otpusta, oni se tužioci žale na blagu kaznenu politiku sudova. Gdje onda vodi upotreba instituta sporazumnog priznanju krivice? Da li to potpuno obesmišljava kaznenu politiku, kako ga motivišu okrivljenog, osim sa nižim još kaznama blage kaznene krivice? Koliko je po vama to?
So, I'm not sure exactly, I can't answer the question as to how specific compatible they are. What I can tell you is that in the United States, any U.S. district court, any federal court, and we also have state courts that prosecute corruption. But if it rises to the federal level, and usually it rises to the federal level if it affects more than one state, or if it's international in nature, money is being laundered, for example, or assets are being moved overseas. And oftentimes they are international, so they are prosecuted at the federal level, which just has more weight. Any U.S. District Court can prosecute a corruption case. So there is no specialized court. There's no specialized prosecutorial unit. The Department of Justice does have prosecutors that have that expertise, and they are often used to assist in these cases, especially those high-profile cases. So if it is a high-profile case that involves corruption, usually the Department of Justice will send a specialized prosecutor to whatever jurisdiction in the United States is investigating that case to assist in the prosecution. So there may be more than one prosecutor assigned to the case. We always try to identify the assets. Our position.
Actually asking that, I'm not sure that the legislation was.
Okay, I thought I heard something about assets.
I was asking. Are you avoiding the plea bargain in those high-profile cases? What's the intention of the prosecutor in such cases?
So the plea bargain is just a tool that the prosecutor uses. Obviously, we want justice to be served. The public expects justice to be served. That's what builds the trust within the government. And trust is the cornerstone of any institution.
Exactly.
So building the trust is making sure that justice is done, and justice may be done through a plea bargain. If the plea bargain is just and assets are recovered, and the individual usually will agree to some type of prison term, they usually go to prison, and I can tell you that politicians don't like going to prison. So that carries weight. So at the end of the day, as long as justice is served and these individuals are the public, they know that they're doing, the prosecutors know that they're doing something that not only the United States, but that the public is getting, will be satisfied with the outcome. Usually, they'll do the plea bargains. You don't want to go through the trial, the percolations of the trial. First of all, it takes a very long time. In the U.S. federal, you have to have a unanimous jury conviction. So could be one person for whatever reason decides not to convict, then the case is what's called a hung jury. You can either re-prosecute or it's done. It has to be unanimous, either unanimous guilty or unanimous not guilty. But if there's one person that doesn't agree, then it's a hung jury. So we have those issues as well. So that's why plea bargains are so important. That's why they're very often used in the U.S. Also because the sentencing, the prison terms tend to be a little bit more lenient. If, as part of, when the case goes to a judge is bound by certain sentencing guidelines. If, let's say that there is no plea bargain and you decide to go to a jury trial and you're convicted, you're subject to the maximum possible sentence that you can get for the crimes that you're committed. And in some cases, it might be a life sentence. It depends on the circumstances. Politically exposed persons and public officials and people involved in corruption, they're usually white collar criminals. They don't want that. They will agree to the less possible prison term that they can possibly get. Be it 30 days, or be it 2 or 3 years, or be it 5 or 6 years. They're not going to risk going to trial. If they risk going to trial, they're subject to the maximum penalties. And usually, when they do go to trial, judges take that into consideration and give them either the maximum or close to the maximum penalty for having gone to trial.
I would get the same answer from you, because they're much more compatible systems.
Well, as Hector said, it has to be, the outcome has to be just and fair. Actually, I don't know too many cases of serious high-level corruption in Germany right now. But my colleagues at Hanover, they prosecuted the former president Christian Wolff. Maybe somebody heard about it. but his offense was to go on a holiday with a rich friend. So it's not, you know, like at stake for him that he sees of his house or anything like a sentence in jail. We are talking about a fine. And what the colleagues did was they offered him to avoid trial by paying some money. It's a legal procedure. And well, what he said was, no, I am innocent, I feel innocent, I want to go to trial, facing, well, actually a fine. And he did not get convicted. So it was highest level of the former head of state, who had to resign because of this affair, but prosecuted. But it wasn't. He didn't face years in jail. So I think, well, talking about a deal in general, it's in Germany we do deals as well. It's part of the criminal code for criminal proceedings. And well, it's laid down. It has to be just and fair. It has to be communicated to the public. And as far as I know, it's not an outcry from the public have ever been, because the deal was too weak to solve. So we try our best. We are obliged to do to keep in mind the magnitude of the offense and to judge it. And I think the job is done well. I didn't hear about an outcry.
Thank you. Just one question. One thing I'd just like to add as well, and that is from a personal perspective, like with Romania, for example. One of my contacts was a judge, and I say was, in Romania and doing corruption cases. And what I want to press upon you guys is the fact that you have to put up with a lot of pressure. And this particular judge, so I've read the news articles in particular as well, was prosecuting a particular gentleman there for multi-million-pound fraud, money laundering, etc. The list goes on. And what happened was, this person got convicted, and they decided in the law there to seize the assets like you would expect everyone to do here in the street. So what happened was, the list of the agreed assets was agreed, and a little bit later on, it came to be that this guy was then not appealing against so much his conviction, but stating that the judge was corrupt when the judge was not. Now, the judge is a person that we know in the United Kingdom as well, and we worked with in the past. And because of this allegation, they got suspended, and they have not been reinstated as of yet. And obviously, it's a long process that goes on. And what I'm trying to say to you is that whenever these people get convicted, they're going to try and wriggle and try and get out, to recover their assets, because like I mentioned earlier in my presentation, seizing your assets actually hurts. This is the whole point about it, and to stop crime being a big benefit. And always give the right sentences as well, and the sentences have to be fair. And if there's any corrupt officials within the government, do not adjust the law to sort out your colleagues that are also helping you with corruption. Again, that's another issue, and there was a guy that was again involved with something very, very similar, suspended sentence for 4 years, no house arrest or anything like that, and he got all of his assets over in Madagascar, hotel complexes, and now he's mixing his money with TV programs being filmed in his hotel complexes. So what it is, sometimes you have to have a big battery of, so to say, verbal launches against you, as well, and lots of pressure being put upon you. But stand firm, stand rooted like a tree, and batter the waves, because there will be mega problems. But the issue is, you were right, they're wrong.
Allora, la domanda è molto interessante e bellissima a mio avviso, e per rispondere necessita dire, un piccolo chiarimento sull'ordinamento giudiziario italiano.
Po mom mišljenju jako odlično pitanje, prelijepo pitanje i korisno. Da bi prije odgovora moram da vas uputim u pravosudni poredak u Italiji.
Per quanto riguarda il rapporto con il potere politico o persone particolarmente esposte, bisogna partire dal presupposto che in Italia l'ufficio della procura insieme al giudice costituiscono la carriera della magistratura. Da noi giudice e pubblico ministero non sono carriere separate.
Što se tiče, kad se pogotovo govori o moćnim osobama, politički izloženim, kada su pod istragom zbog moguće korupcije, moram da naglasim da i u Italiji tužilaštvo i sudstvo povezano čine jedinstven sistem, znači ne možete posmatrati ih odvojeno. To je sudstvo u stvari.
Questo garantisce massima indipendenza perché in Italia la magistratura risponde solo alla legge e non al potere politico.
Znači, maksimalnu nezavisnost ima sudstvo u Italiji. Sudstvo odgovara samo zakonu, a ne političkim moćnicima.
Per quanto riguarda il profilo della soddisfazione nell'attività giudiziaria,
što se tiče tog dijela o zadovoljanju pravde,
per quanto mi riguarda è una priorità, in quanto io ho fatto questo lavoro perché volevo realizzare il sogno di diventare un uomo dello Stato.
To je, što se tiče mene, to mi je uvijek bio prioritet i kada sam kao mlađi maštao o ovom poslu da budem na usluzi države.
E quindi quando lavoro cerco sempre di guardare la proiezione esterna del lavoro per provare a fare qualcosa di utile per quelli che stanno là fuori.
Uvijek gledam taj spoljašnji, eksterni aspekt. Uvijek da zadovoljim obje strane.
Questo anche quando ragioniamo di patteggiamenti, perché in Italia le pene sono previste dalla legge e anche nel caso di patteggiamento si può fare uno sconto di pena già predeterminato, quindi non c'è una discrezionalità assoluta, ci sono sempre delle pene minime da rispettare comunque.
Znači, i kad govorimo o ovom sporazumu o priznavanju krivice na osnovu kojeg se smanjuje kazna, to je već zakonski uređeno u kojem procentu koliko može da se zakonski smanji kazna. Ne može biti iznenađenja u smislu dobio je smanjenje kazne pa izbude neko iznenađenje. To se već unaprijed zna koliko minimum mora da neko odsluži kaznu.
Va tenuto presente che le indagini che si chiudono con il patteggiamento sono quelle migliori sotto un duplice punto di vista.
Moram da naglasim da se istraga koja se zaključi ovim sporazumom budu uvijek najbolje. Evo, ja ću objasnit ću zašto.
Da un lato perché vuol dire che il pubblico ministero ha lavorato talmente bene da costringere, tra virgolette, l'imputato a patteggiare per avere almeno lo sconto di pena.
Zato, s jedne strane, zato što je to znak da je tužilaštvo jako dobro radilo svoj posao na način da je uspjelo da natjera osuđenog optuženu osobu da prizna krivicu i na taj način da i smanji svoju kaznu.
Dall'altro lato, attraverso il patteggiamento si arriva alla definizione finale di un caso e quindi possiamo dedicare energie investigative ad altri casi.
A s druge strane, opet za jedan predmet zaključimo, dosta brzo i možemo svoju energiju da koristimo za druge predmete, za druge slučajeve.
Per fare qualche esempio,
da bi vam napravio neki primjer,
nel corso dell'ultimo anno in almeno 3 indagini per grosse frodi fiscali si sono...
Zadnje 3 godine za 3 velika slučaja poreske prevare.
Tutti e 3 i casi sono definiti con patteggiamento a pena detentiva.
Znači, sva 3 slučaja su završena s sporazumom o priznavanju krivice sa zatvorskom kaznom.
Con confisca di tutti i milioni di euro che erano stati sequestrati.
I sa zapljenom i oduzimanjem svih miliona eura koji su prethodno stvari bili zapljenjeni.
E quindi credo che questi siano risultati utili non solo per l'ufficio di procura, ma soprattutto per la cittadinanza.
Mislim da su ovi rezultati ne samo zadovoljavajući ne za tužilaštvo, nego za sve građanstvo.
To bi bilo to, zahvaljujem se našim gostima i brzo krećemo sa drugim panelom.